Yes.
The municipality
Yes.
of Anchorage Platting Board Authority will now come to order. It is January 6, 2021, and it is 6:34 p.m. I watch. Is it official time? 6:30? Due to coronavirus and the concern over large gatherings, the community members are strongly encouraged to provide their testimony via email or by telephone. While remote participation is strongly encouraged, limited in-person attendance is permitted in accordance with emergency orders. The Platting Board encourages anyone wishing to provide public testimony via telephone to email planningtestimony@anchorageak.gov by 2 p.m. of the day of the meeting. You need to provide your name, phone number, and agenda item number or title for which you wish to provide testimony. The subject line should read phone testimony. The secretary will phone you at the number you provided. You will be given 3 minutes to provide testimony on each item unless you are speaking on behalf of a group as their representative. Then you're given 5 minutes. All documents listed on this agenda are available online at muni.org/watchnow. For auxiliary aids, services, or special modifications to participate, please contact the meeting secretary to request reasonable accommodations at 343-7576 or fax 343-7927. The Platting Board meets once each month, first and third Wednesday, except holidays as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete an agenda item at a regular meeting, the board will carry over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at a meeting is, after the staff's presentation is complete on a public hearing item, I will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons that wish to speak will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rule of Procedure. Petitioners and their representatives are given 10 minutes. They may reserve part of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of group are given 5 minutes. Individuals are given 3. When your testimony is complete, the board may ask questions. You may only testify once on an issue unless the board questions you further. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action this Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by Anchorage Municipal Code 2111-304, and the decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing becomes final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day, asking us to prepare a written decision based on the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision of the Planning Board will become the final appealable decision, and within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to AMC 2111-503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 2130. May we have roll call?
Valerie Ritz. Present. Clayton Walker.
Present.
Kevin Cross.
Present.
Don Porter.
Present.
Mark Seward.
Present.
Becky Lipson.
Present.
Karen McGillivray.
Present.
Jenna Weltine is excused. You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will take up approvals. We have action summary from Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. May I have a motion to approve the action summary?
This is Becky. I move to approve on the chat, and hopefully I'm using the right chat.
Thank you. Becky has moved to approve the action summary. And Becky has done it orally, and meanwhile, since I wasn't logged in, looks like Valerie Rich has seconded. Okay. With that, is there any opposition to approving the the action summary? Seeing and hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we'll turn to the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 2nd, 2020? Kevin Cross has moved and Valerie Rich has seconded. Are there any modifications or changes that need to be made to the proposed minutes? Seeing and hearing none, is there any opposition to approving the minutes as drafted? Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll now turn our attention to special order of business. Do we have any Platting Board members that need to make any disclosures? I don't hear any. So with that, disclosures is complete. We will now turn to informational items. I have two items, December 7th, 20 and December 28th, 20 short plats. And now we will turn our attention to new business. With that, we'll take up case S12577, Eklutna Inc., a request to subdivide one tract into 28 lots and the variances. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As stated, this is a request to subdivide one tract of land into 28 lots with a variance from AMC 2108030F6A cul-de-sacs to exceed 900 feet in length for a cul-de-sac measuring approximately 2,280 feet. This request is made to provide 28 residential lots in Eagle River. The petition site is located south of River Road in Eagle River Valley, and the property was zoned as CER10, which is a low-density residential alpine slope district prior to this Platting Board hearing. And the zoning district-specific standards establish a design standard requiring a minimum lot size based on the average slope of the lot. The subdivision meets the minimum lot size and width requirements, and there were no objections by the reviewing agencies to the platting action of the subdivision of lots. However, traffic engineering did not support the variance. So in the matter of the road improvements, Eagle River Road right-of-way is owned and maintained by Alaska Department of Transportation. Did not recommend any improvements will be required to Eagle River Road. Wild Circle, which is internal, shall be constructed as a 20-foot wide strip paved road in accordance with the design standards for Class B improvements, and also a 20-foot trail easement dedication from the cul-de-sac bulb to the green belt. Staff has requested this as a condition of approval. Staff is also requesting a condition that prior to final plat approval, the petitioner submits to private development a site grading and drainage plan that meets all the applicable requirements. Conformance with the adopted plans. So this preliminary plat, it appears to conform with the 2006 Chugach River Comp Plan land use plan map. Some of those items are Goal 1A, which creates a new residential development of single-family homes in the Eagle River area that meets the needs of present and future residents. Goal Objective 2D, residential densities are compatible with current densities in the immediate and surrounding areas. For the drainage, Watershed Management Services has advised that there are drainage culverts that cross Eagle River Road and drain onto the subject property in the vicinity of lots 1 and 18. Drainage for these culverts should be incorporated into the final drainage design to maintain continuity of drainage across the project area. For the variance request, the petitioner is requesting a variance for the cul-de-sac to exceed the maximum length of 900 feet. And for this subdivision, it's being requested to accommodate the topography of the natural features which involve the proposed road design layout. There's an unnamed tributary of Eagle River that drains north to south, as I mentioned, that Watershed Management Services commented on. And that's along the eastern portion of the property. And then the Chugach State Park Eagle River Greenbelt borders 3 sides to the east, west, and south. So there's no right-of-way there anywhere within there. So that the natural topography is too steep as it drops off Eagle River Road to allow for a second connection to Eagle River Road. And then the geometry of the property limits the options for development and road design. In the standards, staff finds that standard A is met. As stated, there are special circumstances affecting the property. There's no right-of-way connection on 3 sides. To connect the proposed wild circle to Eagle River Road, the grade would exceed the maximum grade allowed in the design criteria manual of 10%. A significant amount of fill would be required to meet a grade, as there is approximately 80 feet of elevation gain between the proposed road and Eagle River Road. As one should note in the Triad engineering letter dated November 6, fill heights could be in excess of 15 feet, and the safest road design for development is the proposed design, which requires the variance. Standard B has been met. It will not be detrimental to or adversely affect the public welfare or negatively affect properties in the vicinity. Staff believes the granting of the variance will provide a road to be built for the subdivision that adequately serves the neighborhood and accommodates emergency response vehicles. Standard C, staff finds that has been met. The intent of this section of code is to discourage, for safety reasons, cul-de-sacs that are in excess length in order to facilitate safe and effective access to the proposed lots. Adding another access from the subject property to Eagle River Road does not change that there is a singular access into and out of the area, as it's located up Eagle River Valley, approximately 6.4 miles, and that's the only access in and out of there. Standard D, staff finds that has been met. Undue hardship would result from strict compliance with the regulations. The natural topography is too steep on the west end of the subdivision to connect Eagle River Road without significant fill and grading. The topography of the property limits the options for access and connection. So the applicant did provide construction costs and estimates that showed an approximately $793,000 or 51% increase in cost of development to provide a secondary access that would meet municipal design criteria requirements. So with the variance recommendation, the Chugaki River R10 zoning district is intended for use in areas where natural physical features such as slopes, soils, and slope stability require unique and creative design for development. Topographic constraints have been taken into consideration during the site design that protects the natural features. Therefore, staff finds that standards have all been substantially met and recommends approval of this variance subject to the conditions at the end of the staff report. It should be noted that traffic has stated, regardless of cost, the secondary access technically can be built. However, planning has looked at those added costs of the road design, and that's why planning is supporting the variance for the cul-de-sac length. So with that, planning does recommend approval of the variance and the plat found on page 11, 12, and 13 of your staff packet for conditions. I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for staff at this time? Seeing and hearing none, we will now look to petitioner's representative. Do we have petitioner's representative present?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, and planning staff. My name is Craig Bennett, and I'm with S4 Group, and I represent the petitioners tonight, Eklutna Inc., and with me tonight is Triad Engineering. I want to thank planning staff for the hard work that has been done on this project. To begin with, we concur with all the department recommendations, except we would like to request that condition 5 on page 12 be revised. The purpose of this condition is to provide the MOA with documentation that a safe, potable water is available on site. After the initial plat application, an investigation and following report was completed by Dan Young with Terrasat Inc. that summarizes the water availability in the area. The report states that Terrasat believes that additional aquifer testing is unnecessary because of the abundance of water indicated by this investigation. And our previous water evaluation includes aquifer tests for other subdivisions in the Eagle River Valley floodplain. Aquifer testing would add additional and unnecessary expense to development. Therefore, would like to request that the A portion of condition 5 be removed because of this recent groundwater study. And I can answer further questions on that if the board has questions. And on to the history of this parcel. We've been working on this project for a few years. In 2018, we started Overlook Addition 2, which created this Tract A and recorded the plat in 2019. We then started the rezone of Tract A. In August, at the P&Z hearing, we got the recommendation for approval. And last month, the rezone from CE to PCD, or CE PCD to CER10 for the subdivision was approved by the Assembly. Now that the rezone has been approved, we are coming before the Platting Board with the subdivision of the tract. We had a positive community meeting, and there's been no public comments against this project. We're requesting to subdivide Tract A into 28 lots. The CER10 zoning is a low-density residential alpine slope district. The site has some challenges with the steep slopes, but this proposed cul-de-sac layout and large lots work well at the site. These lots are all over 1.25 acres in size, and there has been no objection by any of the reviewing agencies to this platting action, and this conforms with the Chugiak Eagle River Comprehensive Plan. And we're asking for a cul-de-sac length variance, and you can see on page 27 and 31 for the application and justification that Triad Engineering did. And as stated in the staff analysis on page 11, staff finds the standards have all been substantially met and recommends approval for the variance. And with that, myself and Triad Engineering can answer any questions the board has about the groundwater comment, the variance, or the subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you, and you have 6 minutes and 50 seconds for rebuttal.
All right.
Do we have any questions from the board for petitioner's representatives?
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. On page 147, I just want to make sure I was looking over our plans here and looking through the MTA respectfully requested a 15-foot wide telephone and telephone and electrical easement dedicated on adjacent either side of a wild circle on both sides of the road and around the cul-de-sac for preliminary plat for Overlook Estates additions lots 3, 1 through 28. And at least it doesn't show up on my print. Has it been established? Is that part of your plat?
So we did the plat, submitted it, and then planning sends it out to the utility companies, and then they make their comments. And that's just MTA's typical comment. They always require a 15-foot easement along the front, and that will be added before the final plat.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Bennett? Seeing and hearing none, we will now take members from the public. Do we have anyone?
No, Mr. Chair, we do not. Thank you.
So we have no one that's going to be calling tonight? Are there any members of the public wanting to speak that are here in attendance? Seeing none?
Otherwise, I'll have another question for Mr. Bennett. I wanted to get public testimony.
Okay.
If there's none, I have another question.
You've got some rebuttal time, but we'll go ahead and ask some questions here, I guess. First, go ahead, Mr.
Hey,
Cross.
Mr. Bennett, I just wanted to see if there was any other, before I went into, I just wanted to see if there was any other public testimony or anything so I could formulate. In regards to section or paragraph 5, section Section A, you've submitted your test by Terrasat, and it's, I guess my only concern, and I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more thought on that, is that if what you provide substantiates the engineering reports, why wouldn't you just submit that to on-site water and wastewater for their approval? And if they find that test by Terrasat is substantially, wouldn't that meet that provision A? Because I'll be honest, I think that, from my opinion, the on-site water and wastewater review approval are probably more qualified than me to say if that report meets this subsection. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know, they're specifically educated in that particular field, and if that substantiates and fulfills their requirements, why would we do that there, and why are we doing that as a plating board being asked to remove that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Grant Matthews, MATHEWS. I'm with Triad Engineering. Totally valid question. Basically, this report was completed after the initial plat submittal, which is why it wasn't in your packet. There's a difference between this report that Dan Young did and specifically the aquifer test that OnSite is requiring in condition 5A. As they say in that condition, that used to be a code requirement, but no longer is, yet they are still requiring an aquifer test. And what Mr. Young did is he actually took a bunch of data in the surrounding area. He's very familiar with this site and other subdivisions nearby. He compiled the data and looked at the superficial geology and wrote this report indicating that water is available. An aquifer test requires drilling wells on site, and that's a pretty substantial cost to the development before any lots are actually available to sell. So that can be upwards of $50,000 to drill the 3 wells and run a test. And it's our professional opinion and more importantly, Terrasat's opinion that that's excessive and not needed in this instance. So this report would still be submitted to OnSite for review, just specifically looking to avoid doing costly and unnecessary testing of the aquifer.
Okay. I think there's going to be further discussion on our side, but thank you.
Do we have any other questions for the petitioners? I don't see any, so you're free to use your time for rebuttal.
Yeah, I just reiterate that Terrasat and Dan Young is well qualified to state the availability of water for the subdivision, and if he says that an aquifer test would be in excess, we would echo that from him as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's worth pointing out that planning staff presented the report that Mr. Matthews and Mr. Bennett pointed out to OnSite, willing to, as a full amendment, remove that condition tonight. However, it was the opinion of Deb Walkenfuss and OnSite that the report done by Terrasat, at least at this point, was not adequate to satisfy that condition. So I think it's worth pointing out to the board that we did in fact try to resolve this condition prior to the meeting here tonight. However, it was Deb's opinion that the condition should stand as written, and that's why we're not proposing any changes at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. You do still have some time left, so if you wanted any other rebuttal to what's been added, we would let you do that.
Yes, this is Brandon Marcotte with Triad Engineering. That's Marcott. I think just to add to what Mr. Matthews and Mr. Bennett were discussing with the on-site testing, the issue that we see is that the conditions specifically state that this requirement is not required in code. So they're specifically stating that they're asking for something that's not a code requirement. And so it's our position that we can provide a report that from a professional hydrologist that shows that water is available in the area, which is over and above what's required in code. And so it's our opinion that we should not be required to install expensive wells and do expensive testing, as Mr. Matthews said. This can equate to $40,000 to $50,000 to the developer to do something that, again, is not required in code, but is being requested. So I think it's that second sentence that we really have an issue with. If it's not required in code, I don't think we should be held to that standard. We're happy to submit reports. We've gone through and done the hydrology study. The information is available, and the information says that from what we know in the surrounding area, there's abundant water there. We shouldn't have to go poke holes in this thing to figure that out. Especially when it's not a code requirement, we should be able to look external to the development for that information. So I just wanted to, I guess, bring that up one more time. That second sentence is something that we really have an issue with, and generally just have an issue with throwing money at a project just to check a few boxes that really actually don't exist. Also, I'm available to answer any questions on the variance, if there are any. We spent a lot of time working with staff on a solution here that worked. It took quite a bit of effort from a cost estimating perspective and working with private development to, I guess, paint the picture of how expensive this secondary access would be. It would be extremely damaging to the development, not only from a construction point of view, but also from the loss in revenue from losing 2 lots and then severely reducing the value of another 3 lots. So once you add those factors in, I think the negative impact to the development eclipses $1 million awfully quick, in my opinion. I think the plat configuration that we have is the safest configuration out of the 2, and it also maximizes the use of a challenging piece of property. Honestly, it's a steep sloping tract of land. There's drainage features we got to deal with, and I think this solution is the best of both worlds. And that's all I have if there's any questions.
Thank you. I guess I had one question. What's the possibility of, instead of having a cul-de-sac, you were to extend the road to the next lot? There's another plot of land at the end of your development, isn't there?
I believe that's parkland, but I'll let Mr. Bennett answer that.
Okay. So that's parkland, that's not other possible public land that could be developed?
Correct, that's the pull-out for the little state park right there, so
Okay.
all 3 sides of parkland there.
Okay. All right, I understand it now. Thanks.
All right.
That closes the public hearing portion of the meeting, and the matter now rests with the board. I would like to have a motion to approve the requested variance under AMC 2108-030F6. Kevin Cross, would you state your motion?
Yeah, in case S12577 Overlook Estates subdivision additions, Lot 3, lots 1 through 28. Let me turn back to my page. I move to approve the request from variance AMC 21.08.030F6A, cul-de-sacs to exceed the maximum 900 feet in length for a cul-de-sac measuring approximately 2,280 feet for the centerline Eagle River Road to the centerline of cul-de-sac bulb of Wild Circle, subject to Section 1, recording a suitable plat within 24 months of approvals and any time extensions.
Thank you, and Valerie Ritz has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, as pointed out in staff packet, underneath the four different criteria that are required for a variance, all four of which were met, specifically is just the topography of the land. We've got state park we've got basically on three sides, which create difficulty following the grade to maintain a road access at the end of the cul-de-sac at less than 10% grade. So just the topography of the land permits for basically a U-shaped subdivision here. So, and in similar circumstances, we've approved, and I'm very familiar with the area. I live in the Eagle River area, and I'm familiar. There's many cul-de-sacs that face this challenge and have been approved in the past. So it's conducive to the area. It's similar, and as well as the topography challenges. That is why I approved the cul-de-sac variance.
Thank you. Do we have any other board members who wish to weigh in on the matter? Mark?
Yes, on this case, I'm also very familiar with that area. I'm going to support this motion because we have to remember as a board and the planning department that this is a very mountainous area. From Eagle River to the end of that road is approximately 12 miles to the park. We have to the west of this proposed subdivision, we have approximately 12 to 13 other roads that range in Westlake Drive's 2,600, we got 19, 2,000, 25, 18, 16, 15, 1,500, 3,700, 3,400. And the last one, Berry Hill, that's 3,400 feet. We also have Birch Lane, that's additional 1,700. And we have Spruce Lane, that's 3,400. And off of Spruce, we have Imperial Drive, that's 1,800. That's strictly to the, I think this subdivision is about mile 8 of Eagle River Valley Road. And then to the east, heading out to the park, we have an additional minimum of 5 roads that are 2,100 to over 5,700 feet. So in my opinion, this really fits the area well. Directly to the west, we have Vantage that is, it's a dead end. All the roads that come off Eagle River Valley Road in this area, they pretty much dead end because there's no other alternative. And so I am really in approval of this proposed subdivision. I think the one access to Eagle River Road makes the most sense. The line of sight from that intersection is very good, so there's not a hazard there. So we are not going to approve anything that's not in excess of that area. That's just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that raise any other comments for other members of the board? I'll call the vote.
Ms. Lipson?
Yay.
Mr. Porter?
Yay.
Ms. McGillivray?
Yay.
Mr. Cross?
Yay.
Mr. Seward?
Yay.
Ms. Ritz?
Yay.
And Chair Walker?
Yay.
Thank you.
With that, the motion passes. We will next turn our consideration to a motion to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions. Kevin Cross, would you please state your motion?
Yes, I move to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Conditions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am going to strike 5A, and I'll explain that. B, 6, 5B, 6, 7, 8, 8A, 8B, C, and D.
Thank you, and Valerie Rich has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, in regards to the petitioner's request to strike 5A, which specifically says that there is adequate and safe potable water for each proposed lot and the neighboring lots, this requirement was formerly an AMC but was removed. This is a code requirement over and above. It's also important to note that each one of these lots will be required to have a COSA. And just to make sure we're on record, this means that each lot will have to have a certificate of an on-site system approval issued by the municipality of Anchorage that serves as a confirmation to any buyer and lending institution that the well and septic systems serving these single-family homes have been inspected, tested by a professional engineer, and were found to be in full compliance with all applicable standards of the MOA. They must meet very rigorous minimum water quality as well as water quantity requirements in order to facilitate a lending institution. If they do not meet a COSA, if they have any complications on top of what Triad has put, they will not be able to sell these lots. It will be a detriment. It is in their best interest to make sure that this is taken care of. And I don't believe that additional testing is of a tremendous cost magnitude is the way to achieve it. I think actually private development, the requirements of lenders and the requirement of the MOA through COSA is more than adequate to make sure this is obtained.
Thank you. Does that raise any other comments from other members?
This is Don Porter. I texted in. Permission to speak.
Permission granted. Don, please speak.
So I do have some concern, whether it be founded or not, I'm not sure, and I'll put it out there to the group. The requirement for safe and for adequate and safe potable water is different from what the COSA that Kevin is referring to. The COSA will not require anything other than individual water for each well. The purpose of the adequate water by an aquifer test is for them to punch a hole in the lots that are being built and then test surrounding the lots to make sure that they are not being affected adversely. And that is not part of the COSA, as I understand things. It does bother me a bit that we have already approached on-site water with the information presented, and they have found it not to be adequate. So it puts us in the position of second-guessing the permitters. And they have specifically made this request, and not only have they specifically made it, but they have specifically made it with the knowledge that the study that was presented to them was inadequate. So unless I'm missing something, that puts us in the position of actually overriding the on-site OSWW, and I do have concerns about that. I wonder if Kevin would speak to that.
Mr. Cross.
Well, I guess my thought is if your effect is going to negatively affect, you mean, I guess, would that be how it negatively affects the lots across the street from Eagle River Road? Because on three sides of this, there is no development.
My concern is that they could be shorting all the lots that are what I believe to be uphill.
Well, I want you to think about that statement. You're shorting water from uphill. It goes past those houses to get to the houses downhill. I think that's part of what's in the Triad engineering. This is an active aquifer. This is not a collecting aquifer on Eagle River. This means that it's draining down towards these houses. It's not like it is in Wasilla or Palmer where it's a collection basin. So I mean, that's a good question. I mean, but from my understanding, this is, I mean, we're in these lots sitting right close to Eagle River. I understand, and I still think that the COSA certification will resolve a lot of those, but I appreciate your thought process, and it gives me something to chew on. Thank you.
My biggest consideration on this is whether or not we have jurisdiction to require things that are not in the code. And one of the things this board is supposed to do is be a stopgap to make sure that parties aren't being required to do more than is required by the code. And if we can't point to a code provision whereby we're entitled to make this a condition, I'm not certain that we have the authority to do so. From a pragmatic point of view, the risk that the developer takes if they don't do the test now and they have a problem later because they short other wells, I mean, they wind up being at risk of, I guess, lawsuits from the other parties. And if that's a risk they're willing to take, the code is written, allows them to take that risk. To the extent that they believe that they've got adequate water availability and adequate aquifers in the valley, then perhaps that risk isn't very great. But as far as what we have authority to do is limited by what is in the code. And I would be favorable to having a motion to amend the motion on the floor to add back condition A. Or I'd leave it out. That's correct, sorry. So I would approve the motion as it's been stated. Does that raise any other questions for other members?
This is Don Porter. I wonder if we could get a response from the planning department.
Through the chair, my request to speak is not working. However, I do see Dave has his answer up, so we can have the plating officer jump in here, and then I can add if needed.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Through the chair to the board. The plating board's responsibility is to ensure that the minimum requirements of the code are met. That being said, the plating board does have authority to require, when necessary, additional testing in this case beyond what the minimum requirements of the code are based on the recommendations of the professional reviewing agencies. In this case, I would recognize, as has been pointed out by the petitioner's representative, that this requirement is not, or I should say this recommendation is not a requirement of code, but rather a recommendation made by an agency that deals with on-site water and wastewater utilities on a daily basis. It's their jobs to review and approve these types of facilities. So in taking the report to Deb Walkenfuss, she reviewed it and said, at this point, the report doesn't meet the minimum requirements, and thus she would recommend that the condition stand. So I would say that you have the authority to, require something in excess of code, but you cannot, without the variance, approve something that is not meeting the minimum requirements of the code. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board members?
This is Don Porter. I will go on record at this point that I'm loath to not listen to OWSF's recommendations since they have full knowledge of the report and they have deemed it inadequate. So I will oppose this motion.
Would you be amenable to making an amendment to the motion on the floor?
Most certainly.
Would you please state your motion to amend?
I would amend the motion that we add 5A in its entirety to which requires safe and adequate potable water for the proposed subdivision, as it's stated in 5A and page 12.
Thank you. And is there a second to the motion on the motion to amend? Do we have anyone online that is wanting to second the motion to amend? Hearing and seeing none, there is no second, and so the motion to amend fails. With that, do we have a, I guess we'll call the vote.
Ms. Lipson?
Yay.
Mr. Porter?
Nay.
Ms. McGillivray?
Yay.
Mr. Cross?
Yay.
Mr. Seward?
Yay.
Ms. Ritz?
Yay.
And Chair Walker?
Yay. With that, the motion has passed, and the agenda is complete, and so we will now stand in adjournment at 7:20.